Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Sigali Shah, and I'm Inbound Product Manager at Micro Focus for ALM Octane. And in this webinar, I want to present you how we as R&D organization, and I'm talking about ALM Octane R&D team, how we did our DevOps transformation journey, the challenges that we had throughout this journey, which is still ongoing, and how we resolve and use Octane to actually being able to resolve most of these challenges and being able to deliver faster and work better with better quality. So this is the scope. I will leave like 10 minutes at the end for questions. So let's start. And I want to take you first, like 5 years ago, where we were working fully waterfall. This is how we developed ALM.NET. And we have, something like 1.5 year cycle between releases, which included a phase of research, gathering the requirements, then some kind of a sign off after everyone agreed that this is going to be the content for a release, which is going to be delivered 18 months from today. Only then developers, which were completely separated from the product team, only then they started doing the implementation. QA were not part of this. They were also separate silos, and were just maybe preparing the test plans throughout these few months of development, and then few months of testing, stabilization, and then a release. So I can tell you that, as you probably know, this was very well defined, not very complicated, but it took us 18 months to deliver while we work this way. And of course, we wanted to deliver faster. We wanted to work more efficiently. We wanted to be closer to our customers. And this is why we went and started to adopt Agile and DevOps practices. And this is where we are today. So now we have 1 month to production. So we actually, after these few years of journey of starting working Agile and DevOps, we managed to reduce our time to market from 18 months into 1 month to production. Of course, it includes, it included a lot of changes in the culture, in the organizational structure, in the mindset of all the stakeholders. But eventually, we have done this, and this is where we are today. We have very agile backlog. We work very closely to our customers and have fast feedback loops, so we can really learn and understand, the directions that we're taking and actually what our customers want and what brings value to them. So this is where we are today, and actually this session is not to talk about the challenges that we had throughout this journey, which really, if I'll summarize it in one sentence, it's really a change in mindset, in understanding how you work differently, how you think differently, what is important, what defines a release, what defines release criteria and quality criteria, when you can actually deliver. So these kinds of questions that it took us some time to understand for the developers, for the QA, which are now in the same teams, of course. But what I want to talk with you about is, once you have reached this point where you know how to work agile, you do DevOps, how do you manage that? Because the way I see it, DevOps really helps you increase your speed, but it really it brings much more complexity. Now you work with an entire ecosystem to enable this agile and DevOps, but But there are many challenges that we're facing on our day-to-day, and we need to make sure that we know how to track them, how to identify those risks, so we can indeed be on time and increase the quality and the delivery speed. So very quick, I want to talk about 3 areas of challenges, and later on I want to show you on our production environment how we use Octane to manage this and actually reflect the information that we need in order to understand the status, the risks, and what we need to do in order to reduce this risk and to deliver on time. So talking about agile challenges, I think the main one I would point here is when you work agile and you deliver, you don't have a lot of features to deliver because you deliver every time only small content in order to be able to deliver continuously. But you need to make sure that what you deliver is what will bring the most value for your business, for your customers. So I'm from the product team. I can tell you that this is actually my main concern in my day-to-day, to make sure that the backlog is prioritized according to the value, to the features that we believe are going to bring the much value for our customers and the business. So this is one thing of how we define MVP, how we prioritize the features. But even most important than that, and this is a challenge that we have faced throughout this time, and now we need to make sure that we follow this, is that also the dev team understand the business priorities. They understand why the MVP is defined as it is, and actually follow these priorities. So this is one challenge that we always need to make sure the developers, QA, all R&D are actually aligned with the product team in regards to business priorities. The other challenge I wanted to mention here in terms of agile development and continuous delivery is in regards to identifying risks, because we have fixed release times. We need to make sure and to identify risk before the release timelines, to understand, are we going to make it on time? If not, which features we need to descope to make sure that what we deliver is with good quality, and not try to deliver too much content if we don't stand in our quality criteria. If you want to accelerate speed, you need to make sure and to track that you maintain balanced WIP, which means you don't work on too many features in parallel. Because if you try to work on too many features, eventually you will not be able to accelerate speed. So this is another thing that we want to track at the team level and to see it. And here, by the way, I'm talking about the PMO, the project manager. Usually, this is what they will track. Of course, identifying bottlenecks. So what is causing delays, how we can improve it, how we can identify it at very early stages of the release. So I'll show you how we do this. And in general, to identify risks that might impact the entire stability of the system. So that's around tracking the progress of the teams and the risk in terms of delivery time. If I'm moving to the quality in agile world, so we cannot talk agile and DevOps without mentioning and actually talking about automation, because it has to come together. If you want to accelerate speed, if you want to deliver faster and deliver a lot of content all the time, you need to make sure that you're backed with automation to cover that, to provide you, the guarantee that you don't break anything, and that you can go with this content. So the first question I would ask with automation, because I don't know if you've seen the first bullet. This is something that we have done. We tried to automate everything. That didn't work because trying to have 100% automation is not just the effort you spend at the first time to do this automation, but then you realize that most of the effort in automation is the maintenance, and make sure that these tests actually provide value and do not cause, false alarms or a lot of maintenance that reduce the ROI you get from automation. So we really needed to define processes, where to invest, where do we want to automate, when to do the automation, what is the best phase to do this. And I'll try to show you in Octane how we track that, what are the phases that our QA defined to do that. Also, how do you measure automation effort? We want to reflect this also as part of the release of an effort of a feature. So we want also to count this effort. One main item which I want to show you and is part of Octane analytics is to being able to identify areas which are not stable. So how do you track that? Let's say you have thousands of automated tests. Some of them are not very good, they're not stable, they don't provide value because of this instability. We want to track them, identify those tests, and remove them from the automation suite because it will increase the productivity and the effectiveness. So I want to show you also that. Of course, we also have manual tests. And the main challenge is we don't have much time. We have short sprints. Every 1 month, a push to SaaS production. So what do we do in our manual testing? How we define that? How do we know where to focus? I also want to show you how we do that and reflect overall quality. The last thing I want to refer to in terms of challenges is adopting the CI system. So of course, as part of working DevOps, we started working with the CI. We're using Jenkins. And at the beginning, it looks very promising. You have everything automated, the build, then you add the layer of automated tests. At the beginning, it's small and nice, but then this layer is increasing and you have thousands of test results. And so you have a lot of data, but you need a way to analyze it. Add to that also security scanning, which we're adding to our pipeline, code coverage, done by code coverage tools, but we bring all this data into our CI and eventually reflect it in Octane. So how do we manage all that? How do we manage CI failures? Just think that there are 150 developers committing to the same master branch, and there are many test failures. Who is the developers that should take responsibility? This is something that is very time consuming. Many developers start investigating what is the problem, how is it related with their commits. This was one of our main challenges while adopting a CI system. And this is something that we provide a solution in Octane using analytics that actually help identify what is the commit that is related with a test failure, and you can know immediately who is the developer that should handle this failure, and the other developers can continue working. So that's around that. As I mentioned, I'm going to show you our live production system, our Octane instance. This is the last slide. What you will see is that we're using Octane to manage everything, starting from requirements management, breaking into the backlog, the team backlog area, all the tests, manual, automated, everything is synced into Octane, including, of course, automation coming from the CI and developers commits and defects management. And actually, this is, I think, the key here for having all the insights we can get from Octane, because once you connect all these entities, all this data, then the system can tell you the real risks you have in the system, the real progress, the status. You have this enterprise view on top of all that, and then you can get the insights you need to take the business decisions. So I'll move now to show you ALM Octane. This is our instance. I don't remember if I mentioned, but we're something like 150 R&D team developing Octane. All of us working here, the product team, UX, developers, QA, everyone is here. What you see here, for those of you who are not familiar with Octane, these are the modules of Octane, starting from requirements, backlog area, quality, which is more the centralized place for the testing. Pipelines is the connectivity with your CI system and brings all the information from CI, as I mentioned, code coverage, security scanning vulnerabilities, and of course, automated tests results. The dashboards. Management is more a management layer to manage your releases and teams, etc. Now, since we have like less than an hour for this demo, I can't go through all these modules. I can tell you just that we're using the requirements module um, to define the high-level specifications. This is more the product owners, my team. We work in this module, define high-level specifications, and then we break them into features. And this is where I'll start. I'll start in the backlog. What you see here on top is the releases we have. This is the current release where this is its internal name, Manchester United. I can choose also to filter by sprint and milestones. On the left, we have the entire backlog tree starting from epics level, features level, and then it can be broken into user stories, and then the developers can break it also to tasks. Let me close this so we can have a better view. What you see here is actually the backlog of the current release of a specific team, which I selected, Ehud's team. You can see that they have something like 16 features assigned for this release. And I can see the ranking, the order of the features. I can make sure that the team is following the order, what is the progress, how many story points the feature was estimated, how many are done, how many are remaining, and so forth. Let me close also this one. I can also see this is the actual story point. So you can see, for example, that this is a very big feature, more than 100 story points for implement this one. This is the number of user stories that the feature is broken into. This is the number of actual commits that were done so far to implement this feature. We also have analytic in Octane in which I want to talk about later on, which identifies commits which are considered as risky commits. And this should provide, some red flag for the QA team. You need to further focus these areas because they have risky commits, and also for the developers, which in many cases don't know that they actually touch a file which is considered a file with a lot of regressions there and defects related with the file. So they need to take further attention while they do this commit and add some tests also from the dev side. This is the test coverage. So you can see I'm just in the backlog. Right from the backlog, immediately I can see all the traceability we have here in the system in terms of user stories, commits, test coverage, the runs that were executed. So you can see that this is a big feature. We already have all these test runs. And later on, I'll drill down a bit so you can see the type of tests that we're doing. And this is the number of features we have. Vulnerabilities is actually information that we bring from security scanning tools, which are connected with the pipeline. So we are using Fortify on demand, but also if you use SonarQube, it's also supported out of the box in Octane. So if you connect it to your pipeline, you will see here vulnerability data. Let me check if we have a different team. So I maybe can show you how it looks like. Let me check with another team. This is, by the way, is tracked by the PMOs as a release criteria. So if we have open vulnerability on a feature, then we don't stand for the release criteria. Here you can see that there is a feature here on this team with open vulnerabilities. So we track that, we know that, and in the PMO dashboards, we make sure that it will be fixed, so we will stand on the release criteria. So getting back to Ehud's team, I want to show you another view, and which should actually help us understand and identify dependencies. Because when you work on team level and you have your features, so you have limited visibility. But as a PMO, as a release manager, I want to be able to also have a view of all the features of all the team. I can select it per release, or let's select another team, or per sprint. And I want the system to identify those dependencies and actually show me whether a feature is dependent with other teams. This is usually done on the PI planning phase. So if I'll go here and check for some dependencies, here there is a feature with 3 dependencies with features on different teams. Here I can see the dependencies, and usually on the PI planning phase, I will identify it. Here, by the way, there is a problematic dependency, and this is why the system marked it as such. Because you need to handle it. Probably this feature is dependent on a feature which is targeted to a later sprint than this one. So this is another way, to reduce risk, identify those dependencies even before the release starts. So that's around that. Maybe very quickly, I will drill down to one of those features. So let's take the big one, because I think it's more interesting. So that's around adding a functionality to Octane, shared space level application modules. This is a request we got from many customers. Let's see inside what this feature includes. So you saw that actually the dev team estimated this functionality with more than 104 story points. This is a link to the mock provided by our UX team. I will not drill down into it. But I want to show you the breaking into backlog items. So you will be able to see the user stories and what we call also quality story. So quality story is more referring to the effort of automation. Let me just try to move this. Can't really. All right. So these are the defects attached to the feature, and you can see here quality stories. So I mentioned before as one of the challenges how we track effort on automating a feature. So this is how we do that. User story is more for implementing the feature. Quality is more for the automation efforts. It has also related commits and story points. And this is how we also can track this and take this into consideration. I can also see all the commits related with this feature, but I'll skip to the tests part. And this is actually all the tests related with the feature, whether they're manual tests or automated tests coming from the CI. You can see, by the way, that many of the manual tests are acceptance. This is how QA define the process. Every user story has a covering manual test, which is of type acceptance. This is already automation and what you see as AT. And we also have feature level tests, which are probably the test type would be regression or end to end. By the way, you can see that we have plenty of tests covering only this feature. This is a Gherkin test. So for those of you who work with Gherkin, Gherkin is fully supported in Octane. So also our QA uses Gherkin as end-to-end test. At the beginning, it's a manual test covering the feature at the feature level, and then once the feature is stabilized, stable enough, then we automate it. So this is around the coverage. Very quickly, I want to move to the team backlog, which is more the area that our teams are working, and you can see all the data related to a specific team. So what you see here, again, we're on the default release, the current release that we're developing right now. I selected Ehud's team, and you can see here the scope, the team progress, how many story points they have done, how many remaining, how many are planned, how many, out of the commits, what is the distribution between defects, user stories, and quality stories, which again for us reflect efforts in automation. This is the storyboard for the user stories, the defects, all the phases that we defined, and this is what the team use for the day-to-day work. But more interested, I wanted to show you how in Octane we reflect the actual commits of the teams. So you can see these commits, the time that they were committed, the stories which they are related to, whether it's a defect or a user story or even a quality story. So it's a commit related with automation. You can see also, if I'll select a specific commit, the files that were changed to see the differences. I will not open it now, but more interesting is one more insight of Octane, and you will see many analytics that we use in Octane that really helps us identify those areas in risk, and actually some insights that you cannot understand, by yourself, and you need a system to take and connect the entire data from all the commits done by all the developers, the traceability and the history, and based on that, provide us indications such as whether this commit is risky or not. So just in a few words, risky commit is a commit that was performed on an area in the code which is considered considered risky. So you can see here this file is a risky file. And how do we identify a risky file? So there are several algorithms behind the scene. One of them is checking if a file has many commits which are related to defects fixing, it means that there are many defects in this area in the code, and every defect touch this code, so this is a risky area. So it provides insights to several personas. First, the developer that committed this, he actually thinks that he just fixed a defect, but the system tells him you should be further testing this because this is a risky area. Second is for the system architect, and they have widgets in which they track those files in the area, in the repository, that are risky and we might need refactoring. And the third persona that is very interested with this insight is the QA, because when they want to define their test strategy and identify risk areas, they want to know which areas has a lot of risky commits. So they're not actually go through every commit. This is not how they work. I will show you in the dashboards how we do this in a higher level and being able to track and identify those risk areas so we can put further attention to them. So that's around that. Very quickly, I'm moving to the quality, in which this is the centralized place where we have all the the manual test, the automated tests. You could see, by the way, that you can see also tests per feature or per user story. So it's actually also per context, but this is the place where you can see all of them. So if I'll go to the root here on the application modules, I want to show you all the tests that we have. And just few words about application modules concept, because for us it really helps us define areas in the product, understand the status of each area, areas that requires further attention, areas which are in risk, coverage per area. So it's very it's very important the way you build your application modules tree, because later on you reflect many insights on this resolution. So it's up to you to define what is the right perspective in which you want to see test coverage and test results and quality issues and things like that. This is how we broke Octane into application modules. So this is the first level, like kind of the modules we have, the backlog module, the dashboard, defects area. And within each part, we have some functionality or entities or things like that. Again, this is how our QA together with the process teams and the dev teams decided to break the application module tree. So if I'll go here to the tests tab, this is where you see all the test suites. As I mentioned, we also work with Gherkin. Actually, QA teams have the full flexibility to choose which testing framework they want to work with. You can see this is the total number of tests we have currently for ALM Octane. It includes manual tests and automated tests coming from the CI. It includes also tests which QA do not refer to, which are more unit tests and system tests, because this is more, the dev area, the dev responsibility. QA mostly refers to tests created by QA as end-to-end, acceptance, regression, sanity, etc. So I want to show you now an example for one of the areas. Yes, if I select the backlog area, and what we can see in the overview. So we have few team leads in our organization, few team leads for QA team leads for Octane. And this is the view of one of our QA leads. And this is what he told me, let me close this, that he want to track, on his area. So he's responsible on the backlog area and some other areas here. And the first thing he wants to see is the effort area versus the coverage, the strategy. So what I would expect modules, and these are all the features assigned to each area. I would expect to see that if one area is in focus and it is an investment area, we have a correlation with the test coverage. So you can see here, it looks good. We do have correlation here. Backlog feature area has the highest number of features planned for this release. And you can see that also in terms of coverage, it's quite good also with automated Gherkin manual tests. Same for the second area with a lot of effort. We can see that the coverage is good. So the QA lead always check that and make sure that if there is a new area which becomes an effort area, we want to also raise the coverage in terms of tests covering it and also automation. This is one example for insights. A second one is quality versus test execution status. What you see here again is the backlog, the application modules of this area, and the number of defects, which reflect somehow actually the quality, the current quality. And on the right side is all the results of test execution, manual and automated. So first, one example of what you can learn from here is that if you have an area with low quality, you do not expect your tests and your automation suite to be green, because if it is, it says that your automation is not good. It's not covering the right areas to detect defects. So if I'll just move the past and planned, and let's look at the, let's see, the backlog tree, for example, I see here 2 defects, or let's take the release. This is the highest one. 3 defects. If I'll go to release context, I would expect to see here failing tests, which we do see. And if I'll drill down inside, I also expect to see that defects were detected by those test runs. So yes, this is how it is. So it looks good, but as a team lead, you can track that indeed your tests are detecting the defects that were detected. So this is just an example of QA lead. I want to take you to the QA manager dashboard, because here we're looking at a more high level. And by the way, what you see here, which I actually skipped, but I did want to mention, is the PMO dashboard. And, after I mentioned how we identify bottlenecks, how we track release criteria. So this is the release criteria of our project manager. First one is to make sure that there are no high or critical open defects. You can see that currently for this current release, this is not the situation, the status. So we're not ready for production today, but that's okay. We're somewhere in the middle of the release. Tracking features, WIP, make sure that each team is not working on too many features in parallel. So I mentioned this also as one of the risk areas, and actually things that we find out through our experience that were not good. And we have cases where teams worked on too many features. So we want to track that. And of course, team's velocity, the throughput of the release, how many story points each team deliver over time, etc. So this is the PMO. And actually, it's a whole separate session of its own. But actually, what I wanted to show you is the QA manager dashboard. So if what I showed you now is release criteria, I want to show you the quality criteria, which are quite different. So first, what you see here, again, RC means release criteria, is to make sure that all features assigned for this release are in status done. The second one is actually, and this is my favorite one, I have to say, it's a heat map of quality per areas. And why do I like this one? Because it reflects quality of each of your application modules, and of course you can play with it and select at which granularity you want to see it. Second level of the tree, first level of the tree, but it includes not just number of open defects. It actually includes many aspects that together defines quality of an area. And I refer to here to test results, to test coverage. It could be that an area is green, there are no defects, but it doesn't have any test coverage. So it doesn't mean that it's in good quality. So we want to refer to all of them. And if I'll go to the configuration here, you can see that there is a set of criteria which the QA manager can define as quality criteria. So in our case, our QA manager defined that if there are more than high and critical open defects, then this is a no-go. This area should be red. You can see, by the way, that the percentage of automation covering an area is not a quality criteria, is not a holder for the release. But of course, we can track it separately to improve and make sure we detect those areas with low automation and understand why it is like this. If an area has no test coverage at all, we want it to be red. There is also a notion of risky commits, of percentage of tests failing in the CI. And here you can see that if more than 5% of the tests are failing, it usually indicates instability of the system. So we want this area to be red. Yes. If I'm looking now at this area, this is the exact case. So we can know now that there is instability in this area from the latest pipeline results. Also, I mentioned before risky commits and how QA relates to it. So this is in regards to testing strategy. Here we can see the number of commits done on the different areas of the product in the latest release. So we want to see which areas had a lot of investment in terms of number of commits, and we want to also see which areas has a high percentage of risk commits. Next to it, we want to see the effort in terms of automation. How many tests are being executed, how many passed and failed, to see if we cover this area right. So the dashboard area, you can see that it had many commits, but it's quite covered with good automation. So if I were a QA manager, I would not be concerned of this area, but more of areas like this, which I don't see or have very small automation coverage, but more manual. So we also want to refer to the manual coverage of areas. And based on these three metrics, how much manual testing effort was done, how much automation we have, and how much changes were done, we will define the testing strategy of where to invest more for this release. Where are the focus areas? Which areas might be in risk? And the last example I want to give you from this dashboard is in regards to automation, because I also mentioned it as one of our main challenges. And I think the most interesting insight, and again, this is analytics coming from ALM Octane, is to identify instability, what we call problematic tests, or unstable or oscillating tests, which actually indicates that these tests are usually not failing because of code issues, but because of instability of the tests themselves. So by identifying that, the QA leads can go through these tests, understand why the system has marked them as unstable. Usually, by the way, I've talked to some of our QA leads, and they said that most of these tests indeed were written not according to the best, automation practices, and this is why they failed due to dependencies or race conditions or things like that. And it took a lot of time for the developers to try and understand why the tests are failing, when eventually they're not failing due to code issues. So that really helps us improve and optimize our test automation suite. Also, here you can see instability per area and things like that. We also want to find automated tests with long duration, because we want to make sure that the pipeline, the main pipeline that is being executed all the time, provides fast feedback to our developers. So we don't want it to run like 2 hours. We really try to maintain it as fast as we can. So tests which are like what you see here, 9 minutes or 5 minutes, are not good, and they should be removed from the pipeline and move from the main pipeline, and maybe move to the nightly one. So these are, I'm really trying to throw here some best practices that we follow. But really, in the scope that I have here, it's very hard to drill down into each one of them. But each one of these insights can improve the way you work, improve your automation suite, provide faster feedback, And this is why you can see it here in the dashboards of our QA manager. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in less than 10 minutes that I have left is the pipeline area. And this is where we actually connect our CI systems into Octane and get all the results. You can see on the top different pipelines that we have. We have a quick one, which just execute something like 200 sanity tests. And this, indicates immediate break in one of the sanities flows. DevSecOps pipeline, which actually responsible on security scanning and bring vulnerabilities data into the system, the nightly pipelines. But the one that I selected is the one which is the main one. You can see that it executes something like 8,000 tests every time. You can see here, by the way, that the last two runs from some reason failed. And now I'm standing on the one that, let me just change the resolution. The last one that passed, it was actually this morning. And if I go inside, what we can see is that 31 tests have failed, 24 were skipped. But first, I want to see, some insights that we can get from the system. On the left, by the way, you can see the structure of the pipeline. This is the root job, and then it is composed of creation, compiling the server, and then system tests, unit tests, and then all the jobs, which includes all the REST tests, UI tests. This is more in the responsibility of QA. So this is the structure of the main pipeline. What you can see here are the related users. All those users are the developers that committed changes that actually eventually trigger the CI to create a new build and execute all these tests. We can see how many tests were failed, how many of them are new. So you can see the 28 actually coming from the previous build failure. And we can see, by the way, that all of them, 31 tests, are handled. So the developers immediately know that they need to handle those test failures, and all of them are handled. If I continue furthermore to show you what else we can see here. So here we have many insights in regards to why some of these jobs failed. Here, there is another analytic of Octane to identify that this job failed due to environmental issue. So this is not a code issue, probably no access to file system or database is down or things like that. So this is more an indication for the ops team to immediately investigate what happens there and not the developers. However, the other builds, you can see some more insights. Who are the developers which are related with these test failures? Who is the committer, which is responsible for most of the test failure? So probably he's on it right now. I also want to take you to the failure analysis flow that we're doing, which really help us, minimize the time it takes us to recover from failure. So if I close this one, what you see here is the 31 tests that failed. I already filtered it. And actually, if I was one of these developers, actually all these developers that committed a change need to investigate and understand why these tests have failed. But the first thing I would use is another analytics of Octane to do clustering of the test failure. So what we do here, we identify from the stack trace, from the errors of the test failures, which tests are failing probably because of the same reason. And you can see here that the system already identified 7 tests on the same cluster, probably failing because of the same issue. So if I choose one of them and I'll go to the report, I can see the stack trace and the error message, and of course drill down more to understand. But the thing is, now that I have clustering, instead of investigating each one of these 7 tests, I can just fix one of them. And that would probably fix the entire cluster. One more very strong analytics, which really help us resolve one of the main challenges that I mentioned before, is who is the developer that is related with with actually the failure. Let me search for this test. For example, you can see here. Sorry about this view. It's very annoying. The system identified that this is the developer that is related with the test failure. Why? Because the user's commits changed a file that was found in the stack trace. So we have many reasons why the system eventually know and actually recommend and assign a user to handle the test failure. But just think how much time it saves for all the other developers that see this test failure, and now the system tells them it's not related with your commit. Most probably it's related with the developer that is assigned to it. So if we'll go to a different test cluster, probably you will see a different committer. Let's just check just one more, just to show you how we get those insights. So this time the system assigned row E, and this is why. I think one last thing I didn't show you in the overview. So we connect also the code coverage information into the pipeline, and we see it also extend. This is more for the dev team leads to track and see the code coverage and whether it has changed in this pipeline due to the new code that was added. So here you can see code coverage by package. And it means in the repository where we have areas with good coverage or areas that needs to improve, and also the code coverage trend per pipeline run. So this information is also coming from code coverage tools. So as I mentioned, there are many insights and analytics in the system that we're using that really help us reduce our mean time to recover, detect the risks on time, identify bottlenecks, track are we improving or not. So we have many trend graphs that shows us are we working good, are we managing, are we improving, and where we need to improve more. So that's around how we use Octane and the value we get from it. And that's really the tip of the iceberg. I think I'll open it now for questions. We have 7 minutes left.
Yes, thank you, Sigal. Everyone, please use the question pane to just ask question to Sigal. As of now, I have one question here from Guru Kiran. How Octane is integrated to automation tool or Jenkins?
So there is a plugin for all for most of the CI systems. We support out of the box Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, GoCD, GitLab, and now we're going to present also integration with the Azure DevOps CI. So all those CI systems have plugins to connect to Octane. Once you connect the plugin, then you get all this information in Octane.
Thank you, Sigal. I hope that's answer your question, Guru. Uh, you can ask more questions. We have more 5 minutes with us. So please go ahead and you can type in your questions. Let's wait for more 2-3 minutes for the questions. If not, then we can end the webinar. Okay, here we go. We have a question from Bhupendra. Can we manage to integrate DevOps release tools in Octane?
So this is planned as part of our roadmap. Currently, it's not integrated. What I've showed you is until the level of the CI integration, yes, continuous integration systems. The CD is still not integrated with Octane, but definitely part of our roadmap. So we complete, until the CD, starting from requirements until the deployment.
Thank you. I hope that's answer your question, Bhupendra. Please ask more questions. We have one question here from Sridhar. Is this a free application? If not, licensing cost please, and how can I get access to all users of the project on one license?
So licensing questions is more for the product managers. I can tell you that you can get a free 90 days trial. You can try it on SaaS, so you get a free instance for 90 days with no limit of users, for start, try, play with it, examine the functionality. But after that, we have a few models of licenses, but that's really probably should be a discussion with product managers. So if your organization is interested with it, I would connect you with our PMs to discuss the options for licenses.
Thank you. I hope that's answered your question, Sridhar. We have more 4 minutes to go. Please ask more questions. Okay, we have a question from Bhupendra again. Can we generate customized reports? Hi, Sigal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I just read a question from Bhupendra. I'll read it out for you again. So this one
Hmm.
is, can we generate customized reports?
Now I can't hear you. Yes. Can you read it again?
Sure. Can we generate customized
I
reports?
still can't hear you.
Uh, can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Okay. Can we generate customized reports?
Yes, so it depends on what kind of reports. So in Octane, we have few levels of reporting. The first one is the dashboards that you have seen, and this is at the workspace level. And I didn't talk about the structure of projects, but we have like a higher level, which is cross workspace that can show you reporting cross workspaces. For generating your reports, there are a few options. One, we support OData protocol in which you can extract from Octane all the data that you want, and it's a protocol supported by most of the BI tools like Excel and Tableau, and you can generate your reporting taking the data from Octane. And the third option is what we're going to present very soon in one of our coming releases is document generation from Octane when you choose all the entities you want at a release level for a specific release, for example, and then you can get a full reporting, in Word or PDF of all the entities that were related with a specific release or whatever filter you're using. So all these levels of reporting exist.
Thank you. We have the next question from Sridhar again. Does this integrate with ALM and Jira?
What is the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The question is, does this integrate with ALM and Jira?
I'm not sure I heard the question again. Do we have a synchronizer with ALM and Jira? This is the question.
Does this integrate with ALM and Jira?
Yes. All right. So the answer is yes. We have a synchronizer coming with Octane, in which you can synchronize from ALM your requirements, your releases, your defects. So it supports this direction of sync both bi-direction, and also from Jira. If your developers still want to continue to work with Jira at the team level because this is what they're used to, because this is what they want, they can continue working with Jira at team level, but then you can sync their backlog into Octane, and then you can connect, all the quality, the test coverage, and have all the capabilities that I just showed you, just by syncing the backlog items from Jira to Octane. And we do have the MF Connect, Micro Focus MF Connect to support it.
Thank you. We'll take this last question, which is from Pavan Kumar. The question is, how soon can we implement, as in the duration, this in a secure client location?
How can we implement? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The question was, how soon can we implement this in a secure client location, as in the duration?
I'm not sure I understand the meaning of secured plan location. It's not very clear to me. But if we're talking about the onboarding of this Octane. So first, if you work with SaaS, then immediately you can get an instance and start working with it. You don't need to install or upgrade or maintain anything. If we're talking about on-prem, then we have also in our marketplace some examples of customers that show how fast was the onboarding of Octane for them, what it required. So again, you get the instance. If it's on-prem, you need to follow the instructions of how to install it, start working with it. But I think once you connect it with your CI system, create your tests and everything, very soon you get the data. Although I have to say some of the analytics data that I showed you here, it will take time because the system needs to collect data, it needs history, so you will not see it at first day of work, but after you will have some data, you will start seeing many insights as the ones that I showed you.
Thank
I
you.
hope
I
that
hope that,
answered the question.
yes, that's right. So we don't have any more questions right now, but if you have any questions for Siegel, please write in a mail to me at anita.nair@capgemini.com and I'll make sure that gets answered by Siegel. Thank you all for joining this webinar and thank you all for your active participation. Thank you, Siegel.